Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Grow With Me. I'm Sean Fisher with My Breakthrough Media, and today we're talking all about B-roll. You know that cool footage you put on your website or social media to give people that look into what your church is like. So we're going to be talking about B-roll for your weekend experience and how you can knock it out of the park. First, what is B-roll? B-roll footage is any supplemental video that is considered to be secondary to your primary footage. Let me show you an example.
If you're new to our church is called Freedom Life. We're a spirit-filled, life-giving church that believe that God's power is not for yesterday, it's for today. We believe in having sound doctrine and theology, but the God of the Bible still lives. We don't just worship the past.
In this example, B-roll would be the footage that isn't of the pastor speaking with the audio. That is your A-roll. B-roll is simply footage over top that helps support what you're trying to communicate. To start, there are 3 quick things to consider when creating B-roll for your church. What is the vision of your church? Is your pastor cool with it? And the framework. Your B-roll should support the vision of your church. It's the guiding lens to which you shoot your B-roll. It starts with the vision, or if your church has a style guide, that is helpful as well, just to get the feel of the shots you should be getting. Next, you want to make sure your pastor is cool with you shooting B-roll. Don't just show up with a camera one day and start filming everything without permission. You want to make sure your leader is cool with it. And 3, you will most likely be getting footage of people who may or may not want to be filmed. So you should have some type of framework in place from a legal standpoint. Some type of graphic or banner that says, by entering this building, you give us the rights to photo or video. It might not be a big deal, but it might be a big deal. So now I'm gonna walk you through what I do to get B-roll at my church. I go to Freedom Life. We're based in Pennsylvania, and our vision is an acronym based on the word life. L, lost people matter to God, so they matter to us. I, investing into the next generation. F, fellowship through small groups and serving. And E, encouragement through relevant biblical ministry. So that is the parameters to which I'm gonna be getting my footage. We are gonna be looking at the short video I showed you earlier and what I did to get B-roll for that.
If you're new to our church is called Freedom Life. We're a spirit-filled, life-giving church that believe that God's power is not for yesterday, it's for today. We believe in having sound doctrine and theology, but the God of the Bible still lives. We don't just worship the past, we live from the Word of God into the future. And we believe that God has a hope and a future for every single person that's sucking oxygen on the planet. God desires to do something good in and through your life, that you have a freedom in life that only He can offer.
So walking into a Sunday, it's important you know the schedule of the day and what that is so that you can be ready for the different elements and maximize your time. Maybe your church is using Planning Center or some other scheduling platform, and you can look at the schedule so you can know where you should be at what time to get the best shots. Now let's actually talk about the shooting. I like to shoot my stuff handheld because I like to be able to move quickly from shot to shot, and it's a lot less noticeable as opposed to having a massive rig. Now I will say you have to be smart about this. Know your gear and what you can do. I'm currently shooting on a GH5 that has great in-camera stabilization, so I'm able to keep my footage looking smooth. But if yours does not have good stabilization, I'd recommend getting a monopod or some type of stabilizer just to keep your footage from looking super shaky. You don't want to have a bunch of super shaky footage at the end of the day. I mean, unless that's what you're going for, but I'm personally not a big fan. I am usually pretty stationary for my shots. I might do a little bit of like a side to side movement just to give it a little bit more motion. Keep the elbows in tight so you can keep it stable. Also important to get into a position that will allow you to see faces and not the backs of heads. This is very easy to do. So I'm gonna be breaking B-roll on a Sunday into 4 different categories. And so the first category we're gonna be looking at is people interacting. Looking at the schedule, I know that I'll be able to get people interacting, having a good time before and after the service because people are coming in, and maybe you have a greeter team and smiling simply happens. So this will be a great time to get people smiling, and you wanna establish that fellowship part like I was talking about earlier in our vision. Maybe for you, whatever that vision is for you, you wanna get some of those shots. I simply look around, see who's smiling, and film them. I'm usually on like an 85mm lens like this, just because I don't want to be right up really close to people, because people are not going to be themselves when they see that they're being filmed and there's a camera in their face. So I usually try to have an 85mm lens, get in a position where I'm not going to be getting backs of heads, but I'm going to be in a position where I can see people's faces and maybe they'll smile. Sometimes I'm literally just like, I'll stay at a spot for 15, 20 seconds because I don't know if they're going to smile or not, and I just want to be ready when they do. And that's kind of how I do it. Next, I can check my schedule and see that we go into a time of worship. So these are great shots for establishing energy in an exciting, life-giving atmosphere. I might switch it up between a wide, like an 18 to 35 or my 85, but I'm usually just depending on what the service looks like. If it looks full, I might shoot more with my 18 to 35 because it'll look like there's a lot of people. But if it's a little bit more empty, I might do the 85 so that it looks a little more full. I pretty much am always trying to shoot in a way that will make the service feel big and exciting, because that's the kind of vibe that we want to go for at Freedom Life. Now, I really want to get shots that are engaging, that show people are excited, involved, and invested in God's house. Hands raised, smiling, movement, that's what I'm looking for. General tips would include filming on a third. I think it makes the shots look more exciting. You want to have your subject facing the negative space as opposed to facing the end of the frame. Also, being intentional about making your background pleasing is important. So try and not just stay in one spot. Switch it up, get different angles and focal lengths. You don't want to stay in one spot and get 10 shots of the exact same thing. I always find that when I'm getting bored shooting or I'm running out of angles, just moving to a new spot forces you to see something different and get a new angle. Last week, I felt like it was getting stale, and so I went behind the stage and got this angle, and I really liked it. After worship, based on my schedule, I'm going to be going to the kids' min. It's going to look similar to the shooting of a before and after service of getting those smiling faces, although the energy will be a lot higher. So running, big expression, full body, flailing of the arms, you know what to expect with kids. You want to get lots of movement, excitement, smiling, connections, and you should also showcase a loving kids' min team interacting with them, so that this shows parents it's a great place to send their kids. Most times I'm using the 85mm lens so that I can be a little bit closer, because if kids see that they're getting filmed, they may or may not like it, and then they start to not be themselves. The next category we're going to be talking about is shooting for your sermon. So this is getting B-roll of your pastor or leader on stage. For this segment, I'm going to be talking about getting B-roll as opposed to A-roll. We might cover that in a later video. And getting B-roll for your pastor is one of the things that I think is super important, and it's also really important that you represent your pastor well and get lots of smiling shots of your pastor. It's your job to represent him well. I'm sure he's already a likable guy, but your B-roll should showcase that. Getting smiling shots of your pastor is going to go a long way. Know when your pastor will smile. This might sound odd, but most people will give clues as to when they're going to smile. So my pastor usually tells a joke at the beginning of the sermon. After he tells the joke, he laughs with the people that are laughing. And so I know that that's a good time that I can get a good shot of him smiling. So you pop the camera into slow-mo, you get shots of him smiling, and oftentimes my pastor will tell a story about his kids, and at some point he will laugh or smile. So this is a great time for you to be ready. Okay, he's going into a story, he might share something funny, he might laugh. When you get great shots of your pastor, it's simply gonna go a long way. So think about when your pastor will smile or when he's going to be the most engaging, and get those shots. So there's some general tips on getting B-roll at your church. I hope this has been helpful for you. In an upcoming week, we're going to be looking at how to take all that footage you got and make it look amazing in the editing. All right, I'll see you next week. Later.